Okay, so a little departure this week. All right.
All right.
I know that normally we tend to kick off Jack of all Graves by talking about, an event out there in the real world, something horrible which has echoed through time, something eerie, something creepy, something strange. This week, little departure. I'm going to speak of just an entirely different world. I'm gonna talk to
Okay.
you a little bit about performance art. Okay.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, performance art, physical theater, um, a brand of theater which doesn't, which is removed from the traditional, get your program, sit down in your seat, watch the fucking curtain go up, watch a show. I want to talk a little bit about performance art and one piece in particular. See, I studied theater, of course. I kind of
Mm.
dabbled. Most of the performance art that I was in was probably shit. I'm self-aware enough to know when I'm in
Okay.
shit, you know?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's part of the process, right?
Yes, but at its best, right?
Hmm.
Performance art it can fucking just shine a light, hold a glass up, hold a mirror up. It can foster dialogue. It can fucking just fucking challenges your assumptions. It encourages you to fucking stare into your own humanity and really kind of weigh up what that means, right?
All right. I'm very
So
interested in this because, like, you know how I tend to be kind of skeptical of stuff that is like
yes,
self-important and things like that, which makes a
yes,
lot of performance art a little difficult for me.
yep,
But I
yep,
am
yep.
very interested in hearing where you're going with this.
It isn't often it isn't a medium which is often associated with a sense of humor. It can
Right,
be
exactly.
po-faced, it can be self-important,
Yeah.
or it can be fucking edgy and dangerous as shit. Um, Let me just introduce you to a practitioner by the name of Marina Abramovic. Okay.
I'm very familiar with Marina
Oh,
Abramovic.
you are. Talk to me. What do
Yes.
you know about Marina Abramovic?
Well, I mean, she's like probably the most famous performing artist of all time, right? So
100%.
she,
Yes.
yeah, did things like The Artist is Here, right?
That's the one.
The
Yes,
Artist Here,
yes,
yeah.
yes,
She's
yes.
got there's one that's celebrating her and Ule right
Yeah.
now
Yep.
in I think it's in London, that's
Hmm.
doing the thing where like the to get into the exhibit you have to
Yes.
move between like two naked bodies so you have to walk in between two naked
Okay.
people who are standing
That's
face
Marina
to face.
Abramovic. All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, she was kind of this is probably I imagine what you're going to talk about, but like basically did like a one famous performing art piece, I think also in tandem with Ule, in which people were basically allowed to do whatever they wanted to her, right?
That's the one.
Which
That is the
Shia
exact
LaBeouf
one.
then later emulated.
Indeed. Plenty of people have had a crack at this. Yeah, Yoko
Yeah,
Ono had a crack at a similar
right.
fucking
Yeah,
concept.
yeah.
Um,
But explain it better than I did. But you know, go ahead.
so the piece in question. So just super briefly, Marina Abramovic. She's a Serbian performance artist. She's still around. She's still practicing. She's still working into her 80s. She was born in 1946. And her work it kind of involves her own body as the primary medium, right? Her physicality is the stage. We are talking, themes of vulnerability, the limits of the human body, what it means to be fucking pain, vulnerability, passivity, endurance. All of these are kind of really key themes in her art, right? I particularly want to talk about a series in the 70s that she produced known as the Rhythm series, right?
Okay.
Um 10, I believe it was 10 separate pieces, rhythms 10 down to 0. And in each of these really pushed it. Rhythm 2, for example, was her and good old Ule repeatedly banging their heads together while chanting the numbers 1 to 10 in their native languages. Okay? Headbutt
Sure.
theater. Fucking headbutt theater. What could be
It's
better
like a
than
couple
that?
of goats.
Exactly this, exactly this. And look, I get how the fucking the classic Simpsons gag about for performance art, the plum in the fucking men's hat suspended in perfume.
Right.
It can get that way, but when it's as visceral and as fucking confrontational and as angry as this, Rhythm
Mhm.
5, for example, was all about just Abramovich laying inside an effigy of a star covered in wood shavings, soaked in gasoline, which she fucking lit and lay
Jesus
there in this
Christ.
fucking burning pyre. Um, But I want to talk specifically about Rhythm Zero, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Which has been referred to as the most terrifying work of art in history.
Oh shit.
Yep. It has ranked ninth in a list by Complex, which is a kind of a multi fucking media kind of art symposium. They ranked it ninth in the greatest works of performance art of all time.
Wow. Okay.
Right? It's incredible. It was an experimental piece where she completely, as you said, exposed herself to the will of the audience, completely relinquishing all control over her body, all of her actions, just completely passive. The physicality of this performance was thus that she stood motionless in the gallery of the theater, surrounded by 72 objects, 72 items on a table in front of her, right?
Mm.
Now, these items, roughly half of them were gentle kind of objects, which could be things like a flower, a feather,
Sure.
some bread, some honey, some wine, some grapes. And the other half of the table contained things like a scalpel, some nails, a gun with a single bullet.
Oh Jesus Christ.
Fuck Corey.
Yeah.
Scissors, and the table had a card featuring some instructions, right? And I quote directly. This is what the card said. Instructions. There are 72 objects on the table that one can use on me as desired. Performance. I am the object. During this period, I take full responsibility. Duration 6 hours, 8 p.m. till 2 a.m. Right?
Yeah.
12. So she stood there for 6 fucking hours. Quick maths. Do you see me crunch the numbers
I
there?
know, that's pretty good. And I can't
That's
verify
right.
it, but it sounds like that's right.
6 hours. Giving that audience carte blanche that
Yeah.
there's complete lack of consequence for them, and as dedicated and as fucking unhinged as this woman is, she said in plenty of interviews she was prepared to die. She was prepared to
Yeah.
die
Like
during
if
that
you're going to
performance.
have a gun in there with a single
Yes.
bullet, you are acknowledging that there's every chance someone could come in there and just be like,
Yep.
sweet, and
Yes.
shoot her.
Yes. How would that be legally?
You would absolutely go to jail. There's no way
Fine,
you
fine,
can't.
fine.
Yeah, there's
Fine.
absolutely no way that it would be like, oh, because the artist said it's okay, it's fine.
Yep.
It's just
Fine. Okay.
not possible.
So the performance begins. Okay. Marina is fully clothed, and it began quite tamely, with people kind of posing her, as you'd imagine, lifting her arms in the air, touching her, placing a rose in her hand, placing other objects in her hand. Someone fed her bread, someone fed her cake. She says of that early phase, the audience were very much playing with me.
Right.
But as the performance drew on, as night fell, the kind of the mood of the audience changed, and the performance began to grow way more sinister. All right. Scissors were used to completely remove her clothes in the third hour.
Of course.
And things just got darker from there. One audience member used the knife on the table to cut her close to her neck and drank some of her blood, tried to drink her blood.
Oh.
Yeah. She was drawn on, she was written on, there were various kind of sexual assaults took place on her. Some members of the audience picked her up and carried her around the room and laid her on the table and stabbed the knife repeatedly into the table next to her in an attempt to get her to quit, in an attempt to get her to break the artificial kind of the artifice. She remained passive, she remained inert, even as audience members loaded the bullet into the gun.
Jeez.
Placed the gun into her hand and pointed it at her head.
They were trying to find a caveat there. Like, what if she does it?
There were fights breaking out among the audience. Violence broke out among the audience. Some members of the crowd formed a kind of a protective ring around her, protecting her, wiping away her tears, fending off, the increasingly fucking hostile actions of the audience. And as mad as it got, right, at 2 a.m., when the gallery announced that the performance was over, Marina reverted back into a kind of an active participant in the room, an active participant in her surroundings. And she recalls the audience almost immediately leaving to kind of just to avoid confronting
Yeah.
the reality of what they'd fucking done to an actual human being.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, this is what
and
is like so insane. Even the part of this where like the beginning part, right? Where you said people were posing her, putting flowers in her hands and things like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
immediately my body tensed up because I can't imagine
No.
using a stranger as an object. You know, if
Yes,
you
indeed.
were standing in
As
front
a
of me
prop.
and you were like, do what you want, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to move your arms around or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
one thing. But the
yeah.
idea of treating another human being as an object, even in a nice way,
Yes,
out of the question to me.
yes.
Absolutely 100% would not ever do
Uh-huh.
that. So
Yep.
that like the idea of everyone just kind of like fleeing, you know, afterwards, it's like, yeah, whether you did something like nice or you
Mm,
attacked her or whatever the case may be, like you just have to deal with the fact that like that wasn't a Barbie, you
exactly.
know, like
Yep, exactly this. And what I find so impactful about that is
mhm.
that each one of that audience who acted so fucking abhorrently in that way, even though that performance is over, even that performance is ended, even though it was just 6 hours long, they have something which they have to deal with for the rest
Yeah,
of their fucking lives.
they've taken that with them. I think, yeah, I think that that is that's I mean that's the brilliance of it for sure because that
Mm-hmm.
is like yeah for her that was probably a horrific
Oh yeah.
bunch of hours. And one of the things that I've read about these various performances of it is that every time a woman performs it, people sexually assault her, you know. And,
100%.
and I think
Yes.
Shia LaBeouf pointed that out that it was like people didn't sexually assault me, you know, like
Mm.
they sure inflicted violence on him and things like that. But it's like anytime they get a chance with women in that, you know, they immediately
Take every liberty offered.
exactly. And like that's the thing is it's like, yeah, this support like I think I can see people again. It's really hard for me to like put myself in this position at all because I simply would
Completely
not
alien. Yeah, yeah,
ever.
yeah. Yeah.
But like, yeah, walking in there and thinking she said it's okay, and then when
So
you leave, going like, the
the
fuck did I just
fuck.
do?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah.
like that's not what you do to
Mm-hmm.
people. And yeah, that's something that I would imagine.
Yep.
Yeah, people carry with them, and that's
Which
longer
which
than
is the
she
master
would.
stroke of that
Yeah.
piece. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
100%. You know,
It's
she'll move
one
on
of
to her next
many
piece.
insane
Yes,
things
yes,
she's done
yes.
throughout her life,
Yep.
but she's not culpable as much as, you know, as the artist. I'm responsible or whatever, you know, but she
Mm-hmm.
did nothing.
No.
And all of those people had agency and chose to visit it upon her in ways that she did not, she invited, but not really, you know?
Exactly. It feels to me something on the level of the Stanford prison experiment, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to really fucking get a real upfront, visceral, authentic view of just how shitty people will be if given fucking carte blanche, you
That
know?
one was like fake though, right? Like Stanford prison experiment.
Yes, 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 yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay. I was like just making sure I wasn't confusing it with something else. But yeah,
Mm.
I mean, it's a real version of that. And that I think that's like that's one of the things that is gives me so much ick about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And is one of the reasons why it's so bold of her to do that is to like, you know, knowing humans and I don't want to say human nature because it's not my nature. It's not, you know, but like
No, certainly
knowing
not.
what humans do given the chance and that
Yep.
like I said, even if you are the kind of person who is willing to touch a stranger like that in any way,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, you are capable of objectifying humans. I think that's it.
Exactly
Like,
this.
you know, the number of people who, whether it's a nice, cute thing or a violent thing, you are capable of seeing another person as an object. And that is deeply terrifying to me to think
Yes.
of how many people are able to do that.
Yep. And then, you know, you mix in kind of herd mentality. Oh, well, fuck
Mm-hmm.
it.
Right,
They're doing it.
exactly. They're
Great.
doing, yeah. Like, I guess it's fine. I'll just
Mm.
escalate this, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
how it turns to bullying, you know, trying to get
Yes.
her to quit this. But also, I mean, then you get the element of it of the people who
The
protect, right?
schism that
Like,
opens up straight away in the audience.
yeah, and you know, certainly I would hope that those people certainly had like reflected upon what their part was before things turned violent and they got into production. Like what was I doing here?
Yeah, yeah.
What was
Yeah,
my
what was I
plan
expecting? What was
here?
I going to get out of this? Yes.
Right. Yeah. Why did I want to go and do this? You know, and now
Mm.
I'm protecting someone from violence or whatever. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting just look at like
Oh,
what
there's so
people
many fucking
do.
it has angles all over
Yeah.
the place. The
Mm-hmm.
dangers of passivity,
Mm-hmm.
the danger of being a passive female. Let's be
Mm-hmm.
fucking real.
Right.
Passivity as defiance.
Right.
But after the performance, to quote Marina Abramovic, what I learned was that if you leave it up to the audience, they can kill you.
Yeah. Right. Like imagine if the protective like squad had not formed.
Yes.
Like someone probably would have killed her. Like or
Yeah.
maimed her in some
Yes.
way.
Whether intentionally or not. I mean, if you're fucking about
Right.
with
Yeah,
anything
with
could have gone
sharp
wrong. Anything.
objects cutting
Yes.
someone's neck and drinking from it. Like,
Loading a gun and
if you're
fucking
not a
aiming it at
doctor,
somebody's head
yeah,
for fuck's sake.
right.
Yes.
Like, any number of ways that could have gone horribly awry.
Yes.
Um, and it's just horrifying. I can't imagine it. And it's just, yeah, I think it just to me, like, I think what you take from that project probably says things about like what you
Yes.
fear or what you worry about or,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And that's like, to me, I think that's it is that I think a thing I fear about people is that they are able to not see other people as humans.
Yes.
And that's what it evokes in me. It's not necessarily what everyone's going to take from that, but that is
Mm.
what squicks me out the most of it is just like the idea that there are lots of people out there who, given the chance, will use your body.
It's made me deeply curious to know if there have been any other instances of this kind of opportunity given to an audience and it's gone the other way. I wonder if this always happens.
That it always eventually gets bad.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting because I know that like with Shia when he did it, it did get violent. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
people did like punch him and stuff like that.
Well, look, I
So
mean, when everybody's best mate David Blaine came over to London and fucking sat in a perspex box in the middle of London for God knows how long, that went really awry. People were chucking stuff at him, you know.
yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a bizarre thing to think about, right? That like for a lot of people and the herd mentality thing is part of it. Like for
Yes.
so many people, like bullying is such an instinct and to like do the worst thing instead of the nicest thing.
Mm,
why not go up to that thing and like take a cute selfie or something like that or like
exactly.
do a little mime for him. Like like why not try to make David Blaine happy? Why instead do you throw things at him and heckle him or whatever? Like the fact that for I think a lot of our societies are sort of raised into bullying and you don't
Yes.
realize it. And then something like
Yes.
this really
Reverting to
brings it
type,
out.
reverting to,
Mm-hmm.
when you strip away all of the social construct, when you're
Right.
not in a kind of a situation that you have a plan for, when
Mm-hmm.
there's not a set way to act, do people just instinctively revert to to the awful?
Yeah. And I like to think they don't, right? Like if
Oh,
someone
I'd like
was
to think they don't.
right, well, I will elaborate on this thought. I feel like if one person were alone in the room with Marina Abramovic, or one
Yep.
person is walking by David Blaine, and there's no other spectators or things like
Yep.
that,
Yep.
I think it would be harder to objectify them. I think it would
Completely
be
agree.
very difficult to walk up to a vulnerable woman by herself,
Yep.
no one else around you, and cut her,
Yes.
and things like that. I think you need people to egg you on. You need like a
Yes.
sense that like this is a part of something, and
Mm-hmm.
that I like to think that there are obviously people who are just like fucking sociopaths or whatever, but that like the majority of people left to
Mm.
their own devices, like their first instinct isn't to hurt. The problem is that we come from societies that like when we get together
Yes.
our
Yes. Yes. Yes.
instinct
The
is to
mob.
hurt.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like how, we joke about this all the time about how like terrifying British teenagers are, but it's like every British teenager I've met by themselves has
Yeah.
been
Sound as a
wonderful.
pound.
You
Yeah.
get them in a group and they're fucking awful. And you're
Mm.
like, why are they like this? And it's just like I think, that is so powerful.
Yes.
And that's another thing that these like experiments show, these performance arts piece shows and whatnot, is just kind of like, yeah, people in groups Ooh.
Oh yeah. Yeah. What I look, what I'm left with is how many podcasts? 50 million podcasts every single week, right? I guarantee you, it's only Joag who started this week with a piece that contained the line, "Why don't you try and make David Blaine happy?" No one else is doing, no one else is going where we're going, folks. No one else.
No one else is asking the tough questions.
No one else dares fucking ask these questions.
And that's the Joag guarantee.